Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jamie and I'm the Business Development Director here at Tribal Worldwide. For those of you who haven't heard of us before, Tribal Worldwide is a total experience agency, and what we mean by this is we think beyond established customer experiences, working with brands to innovate within their customer journeys, whether that be from online to offline, out of home to in-store, for example. But we also work on the internal engagement processes and procedures that help businesses to deliver total experiences, and partnering across both of these areas, we create ecosystems that build better products, services, communications, and ultimately better businesses. So a few years ago now, we began hosting small physical roundtables back when we could all see each other physically. But when last year hit, we felt it was such a shame that all of that fantastic thought leadership we've been creating was going to disappear. So we very quickly pivoted to these online events, and they've been proven to be a great success. And I'm really excited to bring to you the second event of this year, where we're going to be thinking about the research that we've carried out with our audiences and previous event attendees, and coming up with the content that they want to hear. And part of that research showed us that it's become clear that over the last 12 months, it's dramatically accelerated both consumers' reliance on digital in order to engage, interact, and transact with brands, but also the businesses' requirements for digital platforms that are robust, reliable, and deliver experiences that differentiate. Now, while some brands were ahead of the curve anyway by nature of their time to market, such as Kazoo, or by the nature of their business, such as Amazon or Ocado, others have really had to adapt quickly and embrace the change. However, it's clear that there are still a lot of brands playing catch up. In a recent report by Accenture, for example, 77% of CEOs said that their company will fundamentally change the way it engages and interacts with its customers. So this begs the question, how can one really get ready to deliver connected customer experiences that differentiate, drive commercial value, and meet the needs of consumers in 2021 and beyond? So joining us today, we're very lucky to have Alex Ringhofer, Associate Managing Partner at Tribal Worldwide, who heads up Volkswagen Client Services team, as well as being responsible for the strategic development of Tribal's offering to the Volkswagen Group. And he brings with him a wealth of marketing experience, not just in digital, but above the line and experiential as well. And whilst he's been focusing on the automotive and mobility space for the last 6 years, has experience across a vast range of sectors. And joining him, we have Victoria Buchanan, Executive Creative Director and Chief Creative Officer at Tribal Worldwide. Victoria started her career in digital advertising more than 2 decades ago. And is a pioneer in pure digital. She's obsessed with interactive behaviour and is passionate about creating work that allows people to experience brands in more immersive ways, and has worked across a plethora of brands over her tenure here at Tribal. We're really fortunate to be joined by Chris Evans, one of our clients from Volkswagen Group, who is the eCommerce Operations Manager. With over 25 years in the automotive industry, he's recently been working across both the retail and manufacturer sides of the business, having recently managed the digital experience or blended retail strategy for Volkswagen passenger cars. He's passionate for the learning, understanding and adoption of new and innovative solutions that enhance the experience of his customers. So welcome, Chris. So Alex, I'd like to come to you first, really, to take us through a bit of the background to our relationship with Volkswagen and with Chris, and how we've worked with them over a number of years to develop the connected customer experience we see today.
Thanks for having me today, Jamie. So obviously sort of rolling out the whole 20-year kind of journey, it goes beyond the scope of this, but there's a really nice piece on the website for those who want to read up. But I think I just wanted to sort of kick off with a few of the things that sort of stand out for me about the connected customer journey and the journey that we've gone on with Volkswagen. And it's that single-minded focus on the seamless customer experience, all the way from the communications to the website, into the dealership, and then through ownership to repurchase is the one point, and all of the different parts of the business that we've touched and the partnerships that we've developed and been able to cultivate over that period of time. And then I think the other crucial point is that Volkswagen, with our help, have sort of successfully measured and proven the commercial value of that seamless customer experience as well, which is not is not always easy. And that has been crucial in sort of keeping all those stakeholders internally on board with the journey they're on. And then finally, I would say that you're talking about the 20 years, and I think it's really that sort of a long-term partnership that has given us the consistency to help shape a customer experience. But if we're honest, that's also really shaped us as an agency. So some of the things that Jamie was saying up front about total experience and how we see that it's not just the sort of customer experience in itself, but also the employee experience and the organizational enablers that help drive that business growth, that has really and honestly been a product and born out of our experience of implementing blended retail with Volkswagen.
And tell us a bit about the sort of the starting point here. I know that kind of there was an original task around the website. To tell us a bit about that, Alex, and as a kind of starting point.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, I think, and I keep being reminded of that, because it's that job is never done. But the original job of the website was to deliver customers into dealerships, kind of rationally convinced of the product and emotionally engaged with it. And I suppose the challenge you then get is how do you deliver on that promise? So if you create that really sort of rich and engaging experience online through your communications and the website, how do you deliver that in retailer when you've got sort of business structures that are decentralized and have sort of independent businesses involved? And that's where the whole blended retail proposition has come from, of blending the physical retail space with the digital tools, but then crucially when rolling that out, kind of really finding out how important that training and engagement with all of your staff is, and bringing them along on the journey and working with within the existing structures.
Interesting. And Chris, if I can come to you, if I may,
Sure.
that if we're sort of saying that was sort of the original task and sort of the original job around sort of the website, what would you say in your experience, from your perspective, has the last 12 months done to that ambition? Has it changed it, and if it has, how and what does that mean for the future, I suppose, of the connected customer experience for Volkswagen?
Well, it's interesting because you're going, when Alex and I first crossed paths, and he was talking about the obviously good paths that we crossed, Alex, right? All good times. The website, to create that awareness to the customer when they're coming into the retailer, you had to make sure then that you as a team were recognising that customers were way more informed. And this is like a long time ago relative to the world that we're in now with the digital, materials and equipment that we got. But suddenly as teams, then you were seeing customers coming like super informed. Not that they just read a listing or something, but they were experiencing this product in a more, at the time, much more realistic way. And you're having to keep up to speed with that really quickly. And as a manufacturer, we were finding, as when I was in the network, the manufacturer were really good at creating that linkage between what was coming out as this new way to be, that you guys were saying, hey, reacting this way, do this for your customers in this way. You're gonna get that better customer experience. You're gonna drive people through. The manufacturer was then able to sort of create that linkage through dedicated teams within Milton Keynes to then come down to us in the network. As a network, as a team, we're reacting to more informed customers. But again, you're talking a number of years ago. If you look at the last 12 months and how much more used to people have got doing what they do online in that digital, innovative way, and let alone technology, how it's come about, over the last, geez, Alex, when was it we first started out? 10 years or something? I can't even think now. It's a long time running. Everything's just accelerated that much more. If people were there in their networks, using tools, sometimes because they have to, sometimes because they adopted it, sometimes because, customers were pushing it. Now, I just think that drive is just going to accelerate and just be so much more that the enablers and the expectations of the customers as to what you in that retailer know of them, and you're able to understand that they are that far into that purchase journey, that then whatever your business is, that you're able to react in the right way. I think it's an interesting question, but you've got a long time and a lot of change in there that's really pinched this acceleration over the last 12 months.
Yeah, really interesting. But before I come on to you, Vix, and I'd like to come on to you, I always forget to mention this in my introduction. Whilst we're talking over the next sort of 40 minutes or so, please submit any and all questions that might come up that might be sparked from things our panelists are saying. Submit them in a chat directly to me or in the Q&A box. We'd love to get any and all questions answered. The more audience participation, the better. Vix, as I mentioned in my introduction there, you've been with the business a long time, and fair to say, pretty much from the start of the Volkswagen, relationship. From a creative perspective, and your involvement in the team, give us a bit of a sort of a background to sort of how creative has supported the development of the connected customer experience for Volkswagen over the years.
I think it's very easy to look at the connected journey as a technology problem and with a technology solution, and it's such a marriage of science and art, really, and you mustn't forget the super technology but the super creative side of what you're making as well. And that creative part of it is what engages people, it's what builds trust, and then you build trust and you build a relationship, and it's really important that you have both sides of it. And a connected journey can in this industry can be 6 months. A connected journey could be 1 day, 10 minutes, and at all of those touch points on that journey, you need to be having a consistent tone of voice, a consistent conversation, and that familiar feelings that everything holds together. It becomes one big thing. We have as human beings, and especially now and after this year, we have such high expectations of what these experiences should be like. We only notice some stuff when it doesn't work, and most of the time it's working really well and we slide through this world. But I really notice when something doesn't work. I'm much happier with BT than Virgin, I'll tell you that.
And it's interesting, right? Because it's easy to justify internally when you're in a big organization where where the cracks appear and where things fall down. But the truth is the customers don't care, right? And I think when we talk about those kind of expectations, how they're now not only just shaped by kind of the players that are always cited, like your Google kind of moving between the different products, your Amazons, kind of much more the sort of tech stream. It's also all of those companies that, Jamie, like you say, that adapted well during the pandemic. And sometimes it's because they actually have less of that kind of organizational and like baggage. And so it's easier for them to kind of create that connectivity when they were forced by the pandemic to kind of be it move more into an online channel, or be it to suddenly operate as a click and collect business. Those are all things that actually some of those smaller, nimbler operators can sometimes kind of turn around quicker, and then customers sort of almost ask themselves, well, why, if my when we were chatting about this, I remember the doorbell going off and my local wine shop delivering, like a box of wine and beer with with a bicycle, like zero carbon delivery. And then you sort of go like, well, if my local shop can sort of turn the business model around, then why can't the big brand that I'm supposed to kind of trust and make really big purchase decisions with? And yeah, as I say, they don't want, you can't tell them about the internal baggage and systems that don't talk to each other. They just they just see, like Vix, like you said, they just see when things don't work.
Yeah, I experienced this at my local, so why can't I experience it with this multinational organization with power behind it? But we've said for a few times, that actually size is great. Size gives you strength, makes you more versatile, but actually it doesn't make you so nimble. You have these structures and setups, they're there for purpose, rightfully, to keep things safe and right and proper. But actually, at the same time now, you've got to be able to have that thread, I think, through your business that means you can react as you need to at speed, with the right partners. And, others that I've come across that, and motor industry related, but not directly motor industry, they would have been immobile 4 or 5 years ago, like not willing to integrate with any third parties, like we do it all ourselves, this kind of stuff. Actually, recent news that I've read, and they're the opposite now. Take on who they can, incorporate who they can to make sure that they can create that customer experience, whoever the customer experience is, as it needs to be today. You've got to be able to move quick.
Yeah, definitely. And talking a lot about the business there, one of the things I wanted to come on to was, it's all well and good sitting here talking about creating connected customer experiences and doing loads of innovative things. However, certainly in my experience of sort of working on the front line with potential new clients, one of the biggest challenges can be, creating those connected experiences within sort of what can be a disconnected organization. And now there are many different types of disconnection within a business. But I just wanted to sort of discuss that a little bit. So from an internal perspective, and Chris, as you were just talking, I'll come back to you. Can we talk a bit about how the kind of within Volkswagen you've been able to join to come together internally and join what is a very complex business to deliver what then on the front end needs to be a really seamless customer experience.
Well, in our world, there's a lot of players in our game. We operate a franchise network. That have their own investors, their own beliefs and ways. And which there's a core, as there is anything, in steps of selling a vehicle, whatever might be a core. And some of the operators have been in business a lot longer than Volkswagen's been around. 100 plus years. A few of our partners. Not that the salespeople are being around long, 100 plus years. There's some people that I work with that have done many a year, but they're used to doing things in a way that gives a result. And again, kind of almost relating back to the conversation we had the other day, we seem to be good, and I think this is common in a lot of industries, but we seem to be good at experiencing new ways of doing things outside of our own four walls. Yeah, we come into our own four walls and we suddenly think, customers don't need this. This digital thing, this iPad, this whatever it is, we don't need to use this, even though in their own worlds with their kids, they might be experiencing it in Clarks, measuring, shoe sizes or whatever else. But suddenly, oh no, we're in our own four walls. We don't need this. Our customers don't want this. And why I'm kicking off with that bit of the conversation is actually, if you recognize, what you're doing for that customer and why, you might have an agency behind you that has this creative super duper idea based on bags of research and insight that they've got. But then you're trying to relate back to that customer on the street. And the string of people in between, you then got to pull together. So the sales team, or the manager, or the investor, or the people within the brand, now maybe the operational delivery, who might work alongside the digital marketing team, and that for us, and it was predecessor of mine in digital role that kicked it all off. But the agency mixed in with the digital marketing team into the operations team, who are able to translate the message right in the right way for their investors, through their area teams who knew their businesses on a more individual basis, to their sales managers who knew their sales teams who knew their customers. That's what makes it work. You've got to be able to have that conversation, be able to message in the right way. You can't just create something and give it to people and expect it to be done. And we all know that. There people will adopt it because it's what they do in their own lives, but there's plenty of others who won't. You've got to understand the messaging, in between to be able to, get those people to use it in the right way for the right reason, and that is different for a lot of people.
And it's always a balance of carrot and stick as well, isn't it? Because I suppose you could on the one hand always say like, well, okay, you need greater control over all of these different parts of the organization, whether it's one business or multiple business and distributors and retailers and what have you, but actually sort of acknowledging what their objectives are and what their existing incentives are, and sort of working within those frameworks can sometimes then avoid you sort of banging your head against against a brick wall.
People can be very habitual, right? You see it there. Move your toothbrush in your bathroom, you see you reach to the same place for ages before you know it. You are somebody who earns their living from doing something in a certain way that they've done for a long time to do something differently. That's hard. Psychologically, that's hard. So you can't just, force this. You've got to have the realization that, you will need to explain, and you may need to kind of, strong arm in some ways with incentives, but actually, it's much better to be able to get that kind of organic resonance with it and get them to believe. As I say, usually if you can find in someone's circumstance or relate to somebody in their own world as to why this thing means something to them, then suddenly the message becomes clear. They don't see it as this separate thing on a pedestal. Yeah, actually they can see it as why they would use it and why they would expect you to know well.
And I think with VW, there was an interesting, there were interesting moments throughout the journey where products were developed, and that partnership was really important. So we would do a prototype or a little working model of it to get going, and then I remember one time we'd left an iPad app with some salespeople in a showroom, and when we came back they were using it completely differently to how we designed it, and they had loaded up the cars they had in stock, and that we hadn't thought of that. And then suddenly we found a really rich area where we went, and we adapted what we were developing to fit around the way their brains were working. And it was very subtle stuff that we hadn't picked up on research. But then we went back and reiterated a new model, because we had now a different way of using the app and the tool that we'd given the staff. So that partnership is really important as well to evolve a product.
I think that's really key. I hadn't thought this before, but the world of e-commerce is new to me. E-commerce especially, didn't really know anything about it. Like I'd say, integrated in the last couple of years. But this whole concept of people talking about minimum viable products, I think it was one of the Future Stores conferences we went to, and this company were there talking about, they might want to get to this product over here, but actually, or say a car as an example, right? But what they got out there as quick as possible was a scooter, because they could get it out there and learn from their customers to eventually build to this thing at the end. And I think in the success of that tribal Volkswagen at the time digital arm is that that is what happened. You had iPads in the showroom on pedestals, which ended up being iPads with salespeople, which then developed into the configurator, and actually then went beyond. A key message for us, it went beyond this kind of like fancy tool to be able to color and choose your options in your car, but actually then part of what the salesperson could use in their world. And I think the acceleration, the speed they got to is because of, you kicked off with iPads in the showroom and just let learning happen.
And it's nice to hear from Vix how some of these when I wasn't involved, earlier parts of kind of experimentation that actually fed into us formalizing some parts of that. Obviously, you still need that, just very much trial and error. That never goes away. But we really then sort of took that of kind of spending that time and kind of integrated into sort of a proper kind of co-creation process, where at a regular basis you get, some key representatives from dealerships into a room, and you've got concepts there, and and that's so nice about being so close to the customer, as opposed to kind of like a really removed kind of organization that doesn't doesn't know what happens. And sometimes you don't like what you hear from the salespeople, right? But you've got to just take that on board and then shape the solutions accordingly, because otherwise, as you say, the iPad will kind of end up stood somewhere on a plinth in a showroom, or end up in a drawer whilst a sales representative gets their paper brochure out with a pen and underlines the things that
it's got to be easy, and it has to fit in a day. I think as Vix was saying, with those press the button iPads on the pedestal, is you had to charge them up every night. Used to hear these things clacking across the floor. I mean, these are old stories I've used plenty of time, but again, because it was abnormal to the day to day. So again, trying to build that habit around it. But it got to eventually be their tool that they use in their hands. Suddenly adopted. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And so as we're kind of talking about sort of those iPads, etc., I feel it's all kind of now coming round to less sort of about the sort of internal alignment, etc. I think there's been some great sound bites from that, but more about now that sort of external customer experience, and I think over our discussions leading up to this webinar, what's really clear is that the levels of expectations from customers now are so high. If they even if they hadn't been accelerated by the last 12 months, that sort of demand for personalized experiences, seamless experiences, ones that just work, as Vix, you said earlier, it's so high now, and so businesses are under a lot of pressure to deliver them. Vix, I know you've got some opinions here. Just sort of keen to hear from you about sort of how businesses can go about sort of meeting these levels of expectations from customers to deliver these experiences.
Well, I think it's finding the necessary connections your customers need, and having true value behind everything. It's horrific when you start interacting with the brand and there's a sign up form, and I see that form appearing and I'm on the street, I'm on my phone, I'm in a hurry, I just wanted a coffee, and I just walk away. I haven't got the patience for that. So I think it's being really aware of when you are going to interact with your customers, considering the environment they're in, making it as easy as possible so they can join in. If there's a minimum connection, just a telephone, then just let it be a telephone for that first connection, and then build up your data after that. But keeping it easy and keeping it relevant. It's awful when someone talks to you at the wrong time, and that context, we're really sensitive to that now. If something says morning and it's nighttime, or someone says, oh, are you new here? And I've shopped before, and they've forgotten my address and they've lost my card number. I just go, I just expect them, once I've invested in someone, I expect a bit of a proper relationship building and that give and take. So you have to be really careful that your interactions are valuable to me. And if they're not, then it ruffles my feathers and starts making me not like you. And it takes it, you again, it's that trust feeling. You have to build a trust. So you have to think about those moments you're connecting with your customer, that it's the right time and it's got value to me as a customer, not you.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd add, but it's genuine. There's got to be a genuine reason behind it, and I think, and there's no reason to sometimes be or shy away from what it is and why you're doing it as well. Again, to me, that adds to that genuine. And if you can be genuine and honest, then that builds the relationship, and da da da. On it goes. But yeah, long form. So I'm with you. It's like come out.
Yeah, interestingly, that because there is the debate at the moment about the current sort of consumer behaviours and what will stick, what will revert back. A recent report by PwC said that over 90% of consumers thought they would keep their current habits about online and mobile shopping, but I think people are starved for those physical interactions as well. Chris, specifically with maybe talking more broadly to e-commerce, but also kind of from your learnings from VW, but for the general e-commerce sector, how do you think it will change the kind of the retail experience? Be keen to get your insights there.
Yeah, I think we've seen it. I think definitely that there's no shying away from it. The product that you've got, if your product can be experienced to the degree that it needs to be experienced by the user completely remotely. Look at the high street changes recently. There's drama there. Your thing can be bought or returned or whatever. You don't need to have that sort of like personal link to it. But as soon as you start to in your product move into a world where there is either personalization to it, and obviously cars is at one end of the scale, right? It's huge and you're in it a lot, and there's a lot that you can do to it. So absolutely, we view that maybe at slightly different points for the customer, but there will be a touch and feel thing to a degree. Maybe more people are happy to buy remotely, who knows? But there'll be a touch and feel thing and the experiential thing. We were talking again when we said about the future stores example, Lego. Everyone keeps talking about this frictionless environment, and some of our previous brand directors talked about ease and speed and frictionless. And I remember Lego stood out for me telling me, like, we don't want frictionless. We want it to be some friction. We want it to be that the customers stick in our store and experience our product. So if you think about the network, of car retailers or other stores where you need to physically experience that product, bring it to life for the customer in that way. The digital bit, that prior bit of the journey, is then where you can make it feel like it suits them to then get them to come into the store and experience your product for real. Anyway, it's a bit of a roundabout the answer, because I think it depends on what you've got and what you're retailing. And if you can kind of think in that way, I think bring your product to life, get people in touch and feeling your product.
Yeah, I think that's really key. I think what comes out from that as well is that sort of the purpose for a physical interaction needs to be there, and it needs to be some sort of level of valuable exchange for me to sort of venture out. Like you were saying, Jamie, lots of people think they're going to keep up their kind of online shopping habits, but at the same time can't wait when things open up. So, well, when am I going to venture out? It's going to be if I get sort of if I get a meaningful interaction, if there's a product that I can or want to kind of customize or I want to experience it, those I think are really good reasons to then go into a physical retail environment. But then, like Vix was saying, you then expect what I've done online to not just kind of disappear into thin air. I think people going into a shop to see if they have something in stock, I think will be seen as almost absurd, because everyone's got so conditioned by kind of click and collect and online shopping that you wouldn't want to put up with the disappointment of going somewhere and asking, oh, do you have that John Lewis? Do you have that? Do you have that? I don't know, tea set that I was looking to buy, and they go like, oh, you know what? Sorry, we don't have it in stock, but I'll order it for you. You wouldn't want to. I don't think anyone wants to do that anymore. You expect to do that level of kind of research and kind of confirmation up front, and then you go in there to experience the material and to feel that if you hold it in your hand, that's the thing that's going to fit into kind of your life, and that the brand is right for you, that it feels right.
People's time is valuable, isn't it, Alex? I think that's, the people's time is valuable. That whole, wander down to see something in stock. It's like, no, I want to use my time to be able to go and get the thing that I know is in stock so I can come back and do what I want, to do to it. And I think in our industry, we saw a huge drop off, and it's, again, sped up by digital, but you'd see customers numerous times, and loads of time to build a relationship with them. And, you'd be selling yourself as much as your product to yada, 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 go against the competitor. But now they're coming in and they'll either buy then or won't buy then, or they might, fulfill it over the phone. But again, it's, whether we're more time poor or not, or whether it's I don't know, some psychological thing, I don't know. But yeah, time is more precious to people, definitely.
I mean, whilst you're talking about that, Chris, we have actually had a question submitted very much linked to that. We've had a question here saying it would be interesting to know if you've noticed any behavioural changes due to the COVID-related challenges which have changed evolved your solution to VW's prospective or existing customers. For example, safety in the showroom or doing test drives, etc. Is there anything coming out sort of early doors from that, or is it research still ongoing? Or
so probably not close enough to the sales operations side to see if any kind of future changes that may be permanent from it. But the network had to move very quickly when they were able to be open to put in safeguarding measures. The distance, considering still test drives ability, and again, old days would be that you'd predominantly accompany a customer on a test drive for lots of reasons, to make them in some ways feel more comfortable, but also demonstrate the vehicle. And you had to come off of that quite quick. So there were huge changes in the network for when they could open their doors. Those that could operate click and collect do. Quite a few have a used car online purchase ability. New cars not so predominant. And do I think there will be changes that come out of it? Yeah, and I think probably one of the keenest ones might be, this is just my own gut feel, right, not based on anything, that an unaccompanied test drive, huge, genuine interaction, trust, building that relationship. I actually think that could probably be, a more predominant feature than a company. But again, you'll have people running these businesses that will feel, completely the opposite to me. So yeah, definitely some reaction change, and I'm sure there will be some permanent features resulting from it.
And Alex, I know we did a lot of research with Volkswagen over the last 6 months, especially, and from your perspective, obviously working a bit across the multiple stakeholders within the group. What's your opinion there?
Yeah, I think it's also things like video calling has absolutely obviously exploded during the pandemic. It's not just us kind of that spend a lot of time on work video calls. It's obviously seeing family. It's fulfilling more and more purposes, and so I wonder if that becomes a much more permanent fixture for a lot of businesses. So to at least have that choice of when you're going to have a personal interaction, some sort of consultation, to have that via video. Also, I'm also thinking of the medical and healthcare sector as well. I mean, the disruptors like Babylon Health, who obviously already offer a wide range of services sort of remotely, but then also speaking to a friend who's a GP who had to adapt during the pandemic of doing more and more of their consultations via video. And I think in the long term, I could sort of really benefit, because obviously there's always a hesitancy of taking that personal touch away, especially when it's about sort of people's lives and health. But at the same time, if you think of, the limited resources, and I'm now thinking of the NHS, but that could be applied to businesses as well, limited resources in businesses, sort of focusing that one-on-one time on the most valuable interactions, and sort of shortcutting some of the others through more remote, and shortcutting also for the customer's benefit of, as we said, not always having to go there face to face to have a personal interaction. So I think that's another one that I think will be one to watch over the next few months, because it's interesting, right? You also wonder what will be sort of almost tainted for a while, at least, by COVID. There might be sort of almost a bit of a dip. No one wants to spend any time on a video call anymore. Yeah. But then actually, as things sort of even out, you will notice that it during this period, it's established itself as just something that is second nature to people.
That's great, Shelley. Some thoughts about the video comms bit. Definitely. I mean, we had the network we're trying to embrace, or we're embracing for many years, the video interaction with customer and product. But again, what way to bring it to life again has probably been accelerated by the last 12 months. Yeah.
And Vix, attached to some of what we were talking there, I know that you and I are working a lot around with some clients around sort of creating sort of more blended experiences. So not just about the digital or video calling, but sort of embracing the physical and merging the two. I know you're really passionate about that. How do you kind of see that sort of physical delivering those blended experiences moving forward? I guess from everything we were just saying there about maybe digital fatigue, it's going to be really important, right?
Yeah, and I think it's the evolution of that of the experiences we want. I'm just down the road from the new Amazon shop in West London, where you walk in and walk out, and that's really efficient. It's really simple. It's not complicated. But I think the reasons for going to interact with a product or a brand, that's one end. The other end is I want to go and have an experience, and I want to go and understand how these speakers work, how a room can be designed. So I think there's the other extreme where the retail experience needs to be much more immersive. It needs to be, you think of places like the Samsung shop at Coldrops Yard. There's a lounge, there's a kitchen. You can go and it's a proper lovely experience. You can walk through these different environments. You can test all the products. You can take your kids in and play with everything. You can sit at the table, and then you can start drawing. And then there's a coffee machine that's real, and you get a coffee machine, and there's drink in the fridge. And it's such a sort of blended thing. It's you actually stop noticing you're being sold to, and you start living and breathing and imagining life with this product. And I think that's where clever retail spaces are. They have to be that magical now to get me. And it's a reason I get out of my little COVID bubble and go somewhere. I want an experience. I can do all of this online, and I can connect it all, and I can check my account and reorder and have a subscription, but it needs to be an experience like that to get me out of my house. I think if there's a world I can go and experience this and put an hour of my time into that, and it's really enjoyable, the kids like it, both of the whole family enjoys it, then hey, it's a win-win-win, isn't it? It's a lovely experience. It's not like being sold to or being attacked in a showroom or in a shop. It's a completely different experience, and I'm totally in control.
Just had a question submitted on that then, Vix. What do you think that looks like in terms of after sales and ownership then, of those sorts of experiences deliver it? Obviously it's great when you're purchasing a product, but what about sort of after the fact?
Well, it doesn't stop when you buy a product. After sales is part of my life now, and there's a lovely system to it. There's annual events, there's things that wear out, there's a really lovely clock there to run a relationship with me, and I think at those points, those kind of relationships, you as a brand need to be really careful. You need to have this volume control when you turn it up and down. And when I'm just, say with a car, if I'm just booking an MOT, turn down the brand, make it one click, remind me a week before I need to book it, and be really sensible. Don't keep shouting at me, and don't make it feel like you're moaning. Just go, whoop, time, and make it easy, make it lovely. But they're such smart sort of systems you can design around your customers once you've got them. And a car's quite easy because you have a relationship with an owner until they're ready to buy another one. But other products, there are moments, if you think about it, you can design a lovely story like, "Way, it's been a year since you bought me. Congratulations." It could be really simple things that give you a reason to connect with the customer again. So getting some help and getting some advice to think of those stories that you can carry on conversations. It's not hard to create connected reasons to reach out to your customers.
I think you used the Arsenal example, didn't you, the other day, Vix?
Yeah, but this is years ago. They were way ahead of it.
Apologies for any non-Arsenal fans on the call.
When you became a member, it was a very simple application form to become a member on the website. But then as time went by, they just asked you different questions. So they sent me an email going, "Oh, it's Arsene Wenger's birthday," and then they went, "When's your birthday?" And I just went, "Oh." I just gave them my birthday. And then the next year I got a birthday card from Arsene Wenger. So, it's just, it was a really clever, simple way. They had worked out over the year of the first year of membership, they worked out a way to get a little bit out of you all the time. And then by the end of that year, they all felt like my best mates. I was in the club, I was part of the team, I was in the changing room. The whole thing got me emotionally. It was very clever.
I think
I've had someone say they had the same as well.
I still think it's funny when we talk about these bits because you could go back 15 years and you'd have salespeople, taking birthdays of customers to send the birthday cards. You'd have a big box of birthday cards in the cupboard and you'd be handwriting it out. And I remember a retail partner, again, it probably was 15 years ago, I read about them having a cafe attached to their retailer, and I was like, this is genius. And what I love about it is what we do today. It's obviously, generations on for those first moments off, but it's still kind of the same sentiment behind it. Create an experience for your customer, have something maybe more to your product, make a reason for them to be there that Usovich, satisfies more than just that. You've got everyone in tow because you've got to go do this thing and no one else is happy, but actually, satisfy, a lot more, or have genuine relationship with customers around birthdays. It's nice to hear.
Yeah, and we can see.
We've had a load of Vix. We've had a load of questions submitted, and I'm conscious there's 15 minutes left. I know we had something. I know we wanted to talk to kind of that importance of creativity, sort of collaborating across the business. But I think maybe we can talk to that in some of the questions that's been submitted here. Do you mind if I go through some of these? Is that all right, guys? So we've got a question around if Volkswagen had any experience in implementing new digital experiences during COVID, due to the fact that showrooms weren't able to open. Was there anything you could do with the online experience to keep customers engaged until they could visit the showroom? So obviously, delayed spend is better than destroyed spend, sort of thing. Any sort of case studies there, Alex, to the panel, really, and any lessons learned?
Sometimes it's obviously there have been occasions where we're able to accelerate some of the changes that were already going on and offering new sort of experiences and helping the business with that. But sometimes it's also just about the tone of voice and the communication and how you position things and how you instead of offering test drives, just soften that a little bit and just give customers an opportunity just through existing kind of normal ways of keeping in touch, kind of just request callbacks. And actually sometimes that's given us a nice opportunity to experiment, to Vix's point earlier about when to dial things up and down as to what is the right tone at different points in the customer journey, and through personalization actually serving those up at the right time. So that it isn't too pushy when you're not ready to you might not want a quote yet, or you might not want a test drive yet, but you may want someone to give you a call back about this because you've got a question about the product or about a finance deal or whatever. So actually, whilst it was forced by the pandemic, it was sometimes those small changes that have made a big difference in terms of the business being able to stay in touch with its customers.
And we've created some content for VW, in talking to customers that have got new cars, especially the electric range, and actually creating more content to educate people from real owners, having slightly different conversations, less advertising. You can feel you need to make harder working content to engage with people, and have more of a story to tell them. So we've done a bit of that as well this year.
And I mean, video content, obviously, it's not a pandemic thing. That was known both in the automotive industry and beyond. Is that's sort of speaking to the different modes that Chris was talking about with kind of seamless but not frictionless. I mean, video content, if it's channel works in the right stage in a customer journey and for the channel they're consuming it in, is a great way of slowing people down, and obviously as sort of physical interactions and that sort of like tour of the product that you might get from a salesperson or specialist in a retail environment. Obviously, that video content has to work even harder as well in showing you, especially when it's a complex product, and it slows people down, right? You get more time with them than when they're kind of in this multitasking mode and kind of browsing and flicking through pages on a website or on the social channel.
I'm thinking, Chris, your servicing was COVID friendly, polished up a bit, but cars can be picked up and dropped off, and servicing is done through video reviews, so you can see the work that needs to be done. It's actually it wasn't hard to make it non-contact experience.
Yeah, and I think that's when we were saying at the beginning about the size, and then the size differences in like smaller, more nimble. That that is the network. They moved very quickly in very improvised, ingenious ways to be able to keep the business going. Within the rules, and that's an example with service and other ways they could still communicate with the customer remotely and operate. Click and collect where they could. Yeah, there were lots of ideas spun up for sure quickly.
Thank you. There's a question that sort of goes back to sort of the personalization bit here. And saying that the person here is saying in their experience, personalization can scare a lot of businesses because if you get it wrong, it can really backfire. Have any of you experienced sort of such trepidation, and how can a business mitigate against such sort of perceived risk, especially when, as we mentioned before, businesses are under pressure to really advance their capabilities in this area? I don't know who wants to go first there.
I'll go.
Okay.
I think there's different levels of personalization. There's smart personalization where you are very aware of someone's behavior when they interact with you, and you track that behavior and then adjust your behavior based on their behavior, and you're not collecting all their data. You haven't gone into thick personalization, but you can be very effective in that space. When you start getting into personalization, your systems need to be watertight, legally and experience wise, because if you get that wrong, it can be very distressing and upsetting and scare people. So I would say the preparation of personalization needs to be really thorough, and you need to have the right piping behind your ecosystem to make sure that you are doing that correctly and that data is carrying on. There's a story I'm thinking of a brand that launched another brand, and then when someone interacted with that brand, the data hadn't been shared, so suddenly this person was unknown to the master brand, and the master brand was their best friend, and they've been shopping with them for years, and they were distraught, and you've got to watch out for things like that your personalization is connected and properly connected.
And I think you mentioned this before, treating it almost like a relationship. If you haven't spoken to someone in 6 months, you can't just sort of come back as if you were talking to them yesterday. You've got to rebuild that trust up, haven't you?
Yeah, I think working on your tone of voice and having proper writers, having proper copywriters writing a tone of voice guideline for you, and so that you get that right. I don't want my chocolate biscuit company going, "Hey mate," just politely remind me I haven't bought you for a while or something. But I think it's just getting the tone of voice really right. And we've worked a lot this year with lots of our clients getting the COVID tone of voice right, and that changed every week. So one week you could say, "Oh, ba 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 ba," and be quite jolly, but then the next week, news had darkened the mood, and we had to really change, especially in the social channels. We had to be really sharp to tone of voice and make sure we didn't say anything wrong, and make sure we didn't say anything like go out or go for a drive. With Volkswagen, it was really hard to completely change the language. So we weren't talking about going out and driving, but talking about staying safe and not forgetting to perhaps giving your car a polish.
And I think authenticity as well, right? I mean, I don't think I'll ever hear from the 50 odd CEOs who sent me an email at the start of the pandemic, really caring about my health and well-being, in my inbox. I'm not sure I'll hear from them again. Hopefully I will. But yeah, making sure those interactions are authentic. I mean, Chris, any sort of experience there of that sort of nervousness around sort of driving personalization, especially with things like data and GDPR sort of around, or?
I mean, yeah, again, there's, as you can imagine, with with the group that we are, everything to do with data, super amounts of rigor behind it, legalities, functions, GDPR, whatever you want to get. All of that side of it is just second to none. I think for us, it's about using the information in the right way to create that, as I termed it, that genuine relationship. Because I think if it just gets used in the wrong way, or you've provided something and it hasn't been used, that's just as bad, right? So it's just using the right thing in the right way, that you're getting it for a reason, which links to a lot of other bits anyway. And you can start to again create that relationship. If you're trying to remove the human interaction bit for whatever reason, as you were saying a minute ago, you don't have that ability to kind of remember where I was at in the last conversation and then slowly kind of like move into, hey, how are you? I know it's been a few months, but you got to find that kind of like digitized version of that in the middle, and that's where the experts have to, as you said, do the copyright in the right way.
We're sort of in the final 5 minutes. There's still a load of questions I haven't been able to ask, so apologies to the audience. Maybe we can kind of try and get them answered offline, obviously, or indeed sort of reach out to myself after the webinar, and we could kind of set up more of a one-on-one session to dig more into some of your areas of interest. Just as a bit of a wrap up, I suppose I'd like to just do a bit of a round robin, across our panelists as some final thoughts, top tips, to anyone on the line today that might be kind of looking at this going, wherever they are in the journey of creating connected customer experiences, what would be your top piece of advice to go back to their desks today and really think about what they can drive in 2021 to create better connected customer experiences? I suppose, who am I going to come to first? Vix, just because you're in front of me, boss, right there.
My advice is don't go back to where you were. Don't go back to last year. You have learned and done so much this year. You have learned so much about your customers and your business. I think it's just such an exciting time to stand strong and keep moving forward. And if you've created minimal viable products, you've done little pop-up websites or apps or stuff, you can polish them, but if they're working and they're connecting for your customers, then keep going forward and speak to your customers, even if it's a small user group. Find your beta group, call them the beta group, let them feel part of your business, get them excited, but talk to them, ask them what they're enjoying, get some real face-to-face feedback from your customers, because that's what you really need to hear and understand, and you need to hear their fears and understand what they're worried about, and then that will really help you prioritize what you should focus on straight away coming out of this, because this year is just going to get tougher. And don't make it really hard for yourself. You've got to act like water and find the quickest way through this. So use all these contacts and this data that you've now got to find out how people are feeling, and then design around them. But put them first and work around your customers.
And I'm going to save you, Chris, as our closing keynote, so you're lucky. But Alex, same to you, but also just working in here as well. Just a quick question out of it as well. Same sort of top tips, but also any tips regarding sort of marketing via push segments, push segment comms and behavioural smart comms, from push to pull, that sort of thing. Maybe anything around that as well, if you can proffer any opinion.
So I mean, I think Well, maybe start with general point. So
Yeah.
maybe sort of logical continuation from what Vix was saying is can be daunting to think of the sort of whole end-to-end experience. And we've been working with Volkswagen for 20 years, and the job's never done. So kind of start with the customer pain points, because the chances are that's where you can make the biggest difference, both for your customers but also for your business. So that would be one. And then it's not always, I mean, we were talking about kind of tying together the different touch points from a technology and data perspective. And that in itself can also be daunting. But I think sometimes it's not the big complex tech that always makes a difference in connecting things up. Sometimes it's a simple artifact like an email or a QR code or something that can provide that little bit of connectivity that can delight people, or that can make things easier for people. And even when you don't even have that, then you need to maybe train up your staff to kind of get over those humps in connectivity. So there's workarounds when you haven't got it all connected up. I mean, I think the push pull thing is interesting, but I mean, again, I think it comes back to kind of the right mode for the right moment. What we were talking about earlier about how you speak to customers at different kind of life stages, and only do what you can maintain, which also sort of links in with what we're talking about with personalization, because that's where I think sometimes then companies get that tone and that moment wrong, because they build something that they're struggling to then kind of either have enough data to reliably kind of scale, or not have the kind of the manpower to do. So start with small things, and learn from those, and then kind of iterate.
Great. And Chris, final thoughts from you.
5 seconds.
Tips, advice. Yeah.
I think everything as Alex and Vic said really, but I think if you're thinking customer and there's an absolutely genuine reason why you're doing what you're doing, the path that you're taking, you'll succeed remembering the stakeholders in the middle, and probably the translation that you've got to put in play for each of those stakeholders, as I said at the beginning, as to why you're doing what you're doing. So remember the parties involved, have a genuine reason behind it, be prepared to improvise, never get stopped to that first hurdle. Plenty of examples where you could just give up and use another reason as to why I couldn't do this thing. Be prepared to improvise, be nimble, be quick, change. And the other thing for me is, what you were doing may have been great for the last week or month or year, but be prepared to change. Don't just say, hey, that worked then, so it's going to work now.
Absolutely. Nice and succinct there, Chris. Thanks so much.
Rare.
We're at the top of the hour, so apologies to anyone who had a hard stop. These are recorded, these sessions, so do keep an eye out for the recording being published. You can relook at it, share it with colleagues, friends, etc. And also do look out for the emails coming through for next month's webinar as well, where I believe we're going to be talking more around brand and brand strategy and brand comms. So do tune in if that's of interest. And equally, if anything has sparked any inspiration, thoughts, questions, do reach out to me, and perhaps we can kind of set up some one-on-one sessions, maybe perhaps with Vix or Alex or anyone within my business that might be able to address such questions. And thank you very much for the time to the audience and to our panelists for giving up an hour on this fairly blustery day. And yes, have a great end to the week, everybody, and looking forward to welcoming you again soon. So take care, have great weekends, and stay safe.